But let's get to some other breaking news right now from the Justice Department here in Washington, the formal official resignation of the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Let's bring in our Justice reporter, Laura Jarrett, who's working the story for us. Tell us more about the timing of the resignation and what he's saying upon his exit.
Well, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein is a complicated figure. For his critics, his original sin is his participation in the firing of FBI Director James Comey. Remember, he wrote that letter that was really critical of Comey's handling of the Clinton investigation. That gets used as the pretext by President Trump for the firing initially. But then everything gets turned on its head, and he actually appoints the special counsel after some of the reporting coming out about how the president was really leaning on Comey in terms of the Flynn investigation. And so I think that's the duality that you see in the Deputy Attorney General. And later on, of course, he comes under attack repeatedly by the president. Remember, the president even tweeted out a picture of him behind bars. And so in this letter, his resignation letter, he's not resigning until actually May 11th, so it's upcoming, but he praises the president at length. And then he says this in the final paragraph, Wolf, quote, "We enforce the law without fear or favor because credible evidence is not partisan and truth is not determined by opinion polls. We ignore fleeting distractions and focus our attention on the things that matter because a republic that endures is not governed by the news cycle." He's a pretty defensive person when it comes to his handling of the Mueller investigation, and you can be sure he's sending a message here in this statement.
Yeah, he was highly respected coming into the Justice Department as the former U.S. attorney out in Baltimore. For many years, Democrats and Republicans in the state of Maryland always praised him. Now there's some controversy surrounding his tenure over the Department of Justice. Tell us a little bit more about, in recent days, how he's been defending his role in the Mueller probe.
Well, he gave this blistering speech somewhat kind of out of nowhere. It was a Bar Association event where he was being honored for his service both under Republican and Democratic administrations. And he really hit back against his critics. He threw Comey under the bus, and he talked about how, there's press reports that have described him as teary at times, and he said, heck, wouldn't you? I've been angry. He also talked about his facial expressions at a press conference with Bill Barr recently. So he's been much more, I should say, unleashed than usual about the investigation, and always stalwart in terms of thinking and really expressing his support for Mueller and his support for the investigation, the man who he appointed.
Yeah, he's going out there, he's speaking publicly. I assume the House Judiciary Committee, maybe some other House committees, they're going to want him to come and answer questions and appear and to testify at some point.
Absolutely. They're going to want to question him at length about the Mueller investigation, his role in producing the report. Remember, he, along with the Attorney General Bill Barr, found that the president did not obstruct justice, even though Mueller punted on that question. They're going to want to talk to him about that. It's amazing he hasn't had to testify yet about that explosive reporting last year about him contemplating wearing a wire on the president, as well as talking about invoking the 25th Amendment, at least musing about that. So there's plenty there if members of Congress want to dig on that.
And they're going to have to find a new Deputy Attorney General now, and some names are already out there.
Yeah, so Jeffrey Rosen, the number 2 transportation, he's actually had his confirmation hearing. He is awaiting a Senate vote. So
he's presumably going to get confirmed. We'll see how he does. Not an easy job by any means.
All.
You're doing an excellent job, though, covering the Justice Department for us, Laura.
You.
Thank you very much. Let's get to the presidential race. Dramatic developments unfolding over the past few hours. Joe Biden's first campaign rally out in Pennsylvania. State Democrats desperately need to take back in order to take back the White House. Let's go to our political reporter, Arlette Saenz. She's in Pittsburgh for us. So, Arlette, tell us what Biden's message was just a little while ago.
Well, Joe Biden was making an argument about electability, saying that he is someone that could win a state like Pennsylvania. It's late in the primary process, but he very clearly already has his eyes on a general election matchup against President Trump. Joe Biden taking the stage at a Union Hall in Pittsburgh for his first campaign rally as an official 2020 contender.
If I'm going to be able to beat Donald Trump in 2020, it's going to happen here. It's going to happen here.
The Pennsylvania-born Biden putting the focus on the middle class.
The country wasn't built by Wall Street bankers, CEOs, and hedge fund managers. It was built by you. It was built by the great American middle class.
Biden's pitch comes as he picks up a key endorsement from a firefighters union.
Joe's a lot like our firefighters. He's a problem solver who cares deeply about America.
The The Pittsburgh event showcases Biden's play for working-class voters in states like Pennsylvania. The state had been a Democratic stronghold in recent elections, voting for Barack Obama and Joe Biden in 2008 and 2012. Donald Trump flipped the state from blue to red in 2016. The first Republican to carry the state since 1988.
We won the state of Pennsylvania, remember? Remember that incredible night in November? Remember that incredible night?
Today, President Trump showing the frontrunner Biden is on his mind, tweeting about him 4 times in a span of 23 minutes, saying the dues-sucking firefighters' leadership will always support Democrats, even though the membership wants me. Some things never change. Biden fired back on Twitter. I'm sick of this president bad-mouthing unions. We need a president who honors them and their work.
Folks, America's an idea.
Since he entered the race, Biden has framed his campaign as a rebuke of Trump, specifically citing the president's response to the violent clashes in Charlottesville.
Shock the conscience of this nation.
Biden stressing that argument on the trail today.
We are in a battle for America's soul. I really believe that. And we have to restore it.
Biden also offered a bit of a preview of what a policy platform could look like, talking about a $15 minimum wage. And when he was talking about health care, saying that Americans should be able to buy into a public option, Biden said he would delve more into policy details in the coming weeks. Tomorrow, Wolf, Biden's heading to Iowa for his first official visit as a presidential candidate in 2020.
All right, Arlette, thanks very much. Arlette Saenz reporting from Pittsburgh. Now to the president and his fixation on the former vice president, even as Mr. Trump keeps trying to defend his response to white supremacist violence in Charlottesville. Let's go to our White House correspondent, Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, the president's been tweeting, and he's been making it clear that the former vice president, Joe Biden, is very much on his mind.
Yeah, Wolf, privately in recent weeks, the president has been asking people what they think about Joe Biden and whether or not they think he could beat the president in the upcoming election. But today we saw the president's unease over Joe Biden burst into the public view, as Arlette noted, with several tweets today just on Joe Biden and his endorsements from those unions alone. But now, Wolf, that the president is looking ahead to 2020, he's being forced to look back at comments he made in 2017.
Tonight, a president usually known for his confidence appears to be unnerved by his latest rival, former Vice President Joe Biden. Aides insist President Trump isn't worried about running against Biden, but he's clearly on his mind.
I don't know what the hell happened to Biden. I never saw that before. I don't know. It just doesn't look like the same Biden. I said, is that really Joe Biden? He doesn't look the same to me.
Trump referenced the former vice president on Twitter at least 4 times today alone. And while some advisors are urging the president not to single out any Democratic presidential hopefuls just yet, those closest to the president are following his lead on Biden.
Why is he using Charlottesville to launch a candidacy as somebody who was in the Senate for decades, who was vice president for 8 years?
The White House has been on defense after Biden made Trump's comments about a 2017 white nationalist rally in Charlottesville that left a counter-protester dead, a central focus of his campaign announcement.
When President Trump condemned racism, bigotry, evil, violence, and then took it many steps further and called out neo-Nazis, white supremacists, KKK, that is darn near perfection.
After a shooting at a synagogue outside of San Diego left 1 person dead and several others injured this weekend, President Trump offered a full-throated denouncement of hate at his latest rally.
We forcefully condemn the evil of anti-Semitism and hate, which must be defeated.
The latest shooting, 6 months after a shooting at a synagogue in Pittsburgh killed 11, has put the rise of white nationalism at the forefront of the 2020 race. The FBI says hate crimes are on the rise for the 3rd year in a row. But 6 weeks ago, after a gunman killed 49 Muslims at 2 mosques in New Zealand, Trump downplayed the threat.
I don't really. I think it's a small group of people that have very, very serious problems.
His allies say his critics are misrepresenting his remarks about what happened in Charlottesville.
If you go back and look at what Trump said clearly that he was opposed to the white supremacists, he was opposed to Klansmen, he was opposed to Nazis. I mean, he says it clearly.
But after the protest 2 years ago, the president blamed both sides.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides.
Then, 2 full days later, after facing widespread criticism from Republican lawmakers and CEOs, the president named names.
Those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans.
The next day, after fuming from coverage that said he hadn't gone far enough, Trump defended his first statement.
Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides.
Now, Wolf, the president did not answer a question earlier today here at the White House about whether or not he still doesn't think white nationalism is something that's on the rise here in the U.S. But one thing that aides are worried the president is going to talk about too much are these Democratic hopefuls. They say that the more the president sees these Democrats on TV sucking up the political oxygen, that the president is not going to be able to resist getting involved.
He's already getting involved. All right, Caitlin, thank you very much. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman John Garamendi. He serves on the Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us. Let's get to the breaking news. Rod Rosenstein making it official, announcing his resignation effective May 11th. How do you judge his legacy?
Questionable. It's questionable. Obviously, he had a great reputation coming into the job. He had a role, but his first effort out was to try to define why Comey should be fired. And then we go on from there on the Mueller report, the rollout of the Mueller report, what role did he have in all of that? So let's see where it goes, but I would use the word questionable.
You'd like him to testify before House committees.
All of these folks should testify. This is a very, very important issue. The Mueller report, all of the issues, the way in which the Trump campaign worked, or at least encouraged the Russians to be involved, and then, of course, the question of obstruction of justice.
Speaking about testifying, the Attorney General, Bill Barr, is now threatening not to appear before the House Judiciary Committee Thursday morning because Jerry Nadler, the committee chairman, wants at the end 30 minutes of Republican staff lawyers and 30 minutes of Democratic staff lawyers, an hour after the members each get 5 minutes to ask specific questions, and he thinks that's inappropriate.
Why would that be inappropriate? What is he fearful? Why does he fear an attorney, a staff attorney for the Republicans and the Democrats, asking him a question? What does he fear here? He should come before Congress, answer all the questions. Staff attorney questions are not always asked, but they should be and could be. Let's get forward here. He has some questions to answer.
Because Chairman Nadler is threatening a subpoena, but the question is, can he enforce a subpoena against the Attorney General if he decides not to appear Thursday morning?
I don't think he wants to find out whether the huffing and puffing really has authority. Congress has enormous authority over many, many aspects of what this Justice Department and really what Mr. Barr has the opportunity to do, not the least of which is money.
Let's talk about the vice president, the former vice president, Joe Biden. He hit the campaign trail, his first rally today, speaking a lot about the president and the economy, saying that the tax cuts that were implemented really only affect the top 1% of the American people, big business as well. How strong of a case do you think that former Vice President Biden is making moving towards 2020?
I think he's going to be very, very strong. He's got a lot of experience. He knows America. He's campaigned throughout America. He's going to be a very, very strong candidate. And frankly, he's prepared to be president, should it come to that.
He's also making a major issue in an introductory video, and today is once again saying the soul of the nation, soul of America is at stake, and he's really going after President Trump for the way he spoke out and behaved after Charlottesville, what was going on there. Is this an effective strategy for the former vice president?
I think it is, but beyond that, the soul of America really is in question. We're seeing the rise of white nationalism. We're seeing more anti-Semitism. We're seeing all of these things. Why is it coming about? Is it just that it's a time of a season? I don't think so. I think we have a president that when he reads from the teleprompter says the right thing, and then when he goes off script, his soul is exposed. And frankly, it is not a very pretty picture.
Let's talk a little bit about another story that's developed over these past few days. The former U.S. diplomat, special envoy to North Korea, Joseph Yoon, who helped secure the release of the American hostage, the University of Virginia student Otto Warmbier from North Korea, says that he believes the president personally signed off on his signature, on Yoon's signature, that there would be a $2 million payment to North Korea for hospital expenses involving Otto Warmbier. The money was never paid to North Korea. But what's your reaction to this? You're on the Armed Services Committee.
Well, we need to know. This is one more issue where the Congress has the right to know, the right to oversee this. Was money being paid for a hostage, or was money being paid?
We're told no money was actually paid, even though there was a signature by the ambassador, the envoy, that there would be $2 million.
Questions told by whom? We do know that this administration has a serious problem with the truth. They've hidden the facts. They've lied repeatedly, not just the president, who is a prolific liar, but also the rest of the administration. We can't trust them. That's why these hearings are critically important. We've got so many issues out there. The issue of classified people or getting classification. All of those issues are out there. We need to know. The American public needs to know. Were laws broken? We don't know.
That's what Congress does, is oversight.
That's oversight. That's our job.
All right, thanks very much for coming in.
Always.
John Garamendi of California. Just ahead.